Welcome to the Javier Mendez podcast. We are back with another exciting episode, and we were having crazy times, interesting times in the sport, and just finished watching Cynthia Calvillo, move up in the rankings. She just became a member of AKA, and so proud of her. She put on a great performance, and it was tough during the COVID and trying to have training partners and being new to the gym. How did she end up coming over to you guys and working with Coach Ron there, Hav?
Cynthia came over because she has some of her friends that are here that she started with at Dark Horse, downtown San Jose with Dave Velasquez. And so she was familiar with this gym through them. I guess she came in trying it out. And the fact that her parents live here, she lives here, and being homesick with her parents, I think was the deciding factor for her. Mm-hmm. She came for those reasons, and that's pretty much it. She lived in San Jose. She started in San Jose, and she's back home with her family. Which is what is a big deciding factor for most people, family.
Well, I noticed her grappling was amazing. I have that picture on Instagram where she's climbing on the back and she's got somebody, locked up in the middle, and her grappling, her jiu-jitsu is on point. She's working with Coach Ron Kessler, who people are just starting to hear about. And that's one of your coaches. I mean, his grappling's at a pretty high level. I'm sure her level was pretty high too. So she came in and it was enhanced, right?
No, she already came in with the high level grappling. Right. And her stand-up was needed some work, and she's with Big Papa, Zach Parrish. She's working with him, and Ron is a head coach for her. They're helping her along with the whole team, but the whole team's not available right now because we can't because of the COVID thing. But for the most part, it's just basically those two guys and a few sparring partners that she was able to get, like Anto, Brianna. Brianna's actually fighting this Saturday in the UFC. To use Brianna and sparring and a few other girls, but yeah, she already had great grappling. She just basically just being polished up a little bit. I mean, it isn't like she learns a whole bunch of new stuff. She didn't learn a whole bunch of nothing. She just was comfortable with the people she has training her. She felt very confident. And if you watch the fight, the girl knows how to fight.
Yeah.
She knows how to fight. So you could just be the bucket boy and not give her any instructions. She'll go out there and she'll do what she needs to do. And that's what she did.
That's pretty nice. I mean, usually sometimes when people change camps, it's like a 50-50, like, is this going to work for them? Are they going to be able to, but her fighting was solid that she just took that with her. She was who she was, and she brought it over to AKA, right? Pretty much.
She was who she was. She came in with what she had at Alpha Male, and she used what she got at Alpha Male, and that was it. But the fighter in her was not Alpha Male. The fighter in her is her. She's just a badass fighter. That's just the bottom line. It comes down to that and that alone. She's a badass fighter. No matter where she's at, she's gonna excel because that's what she does. She excels.
Yesterday I was doing a podcast with our Italian friend Enrico, who comes and trains at your gym once in a while, and basically I talked to his coach and his manager. Yeah. And we were talking about AKA, and they were so appreciative. What you got there? Is there a magic box?
I know, box. Just tired of holding the phone.
Okay, but I mean, they were like, "Yeah, we need people to come over to AKA to test their levels, to try out people at higher levels." And of course, as usual, Enrico is very complimentary because he's like, "Wow, I can actually train. I can spar with somebody." Because that's what's hard in some of the other countries. I mean, you've got a great program there. And, he's like, hey, man, this is the best place. And he's bounced around the world. So even his coach is like, listen, I'm not greedy. And you're the same way. You're like, hey, if one of my fighters is getting some benefit, we're adding on a guy here and there, and it's making them grow. You're not like, oh, my way is the only way kind of thing, right? I mean, that's what I get from you.
Well, because you got to look at the MMA is like a team sport. To be successful, unless you have a lot of money, you can pay for a lot of specialty workers, sparring partners. You're not going to get the best if you have a weak gym. with the the talent not there. It's not going to work for you unless they're specifically there for you and all the attention is on one individual. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. So the bottom line is, to have a strong gym like this, it's a big benefit for anybody. And you have to have a gym like this unless you got your own type of training. And most people can't afford their own type of training. So you better have a gym like this if you're going to be successful at that higher level at your best. You want to be at your best, you got to be at a gym like this.
And that's the truth. I mean, talking with one of your old guys that came and used your gym, you couldn't work with him specifically at the time because you were working, I believe, with Brian Johnston. But talking to Paul, the polar bear, he's like, the problem he had, because he was such a big guy, it was 6'8" and 350, 60, 80 pounds. He's like, I couldn't go full speed. He didn't have a gym where he could fight other giants like himself at the time. He says he could go 30, 40%, and that affected his fighting. So I would presume if you get somebody like Enrico, who's pretty tough, if he goes to some other little gyms and he just wipes everybody out, he doesn't improve. So you having everybody stacked at such a high level really helps these guys like actually get it out of their system, experiment with it, take it to the level, not just, pity pat 30, 40% and hope that lines up for a fight.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much comes down to a nutshell. Paul was a monster. He's like 6'7", like you said, 350, 70 pounds. And, hey, man, 30, 40%, there's still, that's a big meat hook hitting you, You don't want to be getting hit by someone that big or someone like that big on top of you, smashing you and you're not knowing what you're doing. It's tough. So for him, it wasn't easy adjusting. He was a football player, and that's what he did. And he's a tough guy. But skill-wise, Paul didn't have the skills. He had the toughness, but then back then in the UFC, it wasn't required to be super tough. It was, super skilled. It was required to be super big, and he fit that criteria all the way. He was tough as hell, super big, but he wasn't skilled. He was not skilled, and that was the area where Paul always got beat by the more skillful guys like Hua, the legs, if it was, Bochenchin,
the hammer.
Yeah, and Bochenchin was 5'9".
Bochenchin was an amazing fighter from Russia or Ukraine. I don't remember exactly, and I know that Ukraine. I know that people would like, oh my gosh, he's out again. Like he was scary in his town. He was so tough. Like nobody wanted to fight him. I heard some story about that.
5'9", 210, 20 pounds. A small little guy, but he was devastating leg kicker. And you had some form of wrestling, and you can leg kick like he could. Man, you're dangerous. So Bochenchin was someone to be reckoned with, and Paul had the misfortune of having to fight him. Paul fought a lot of good guys, man. And Paul, had he had more skill, in other words, had he had someone training him properly, Paul would have went further with the sport because he was definitely athletic, and he's definitely a real fighter. He was a real fighter. And, and he didn't pretend to be like a tough guy. He was a tough guy.
Yeah.
But he didn't act like one, but he is a tough guy. It's like you go into a bar and stuff, and if you're going to figure out who's one of the toughest guys there, I guarantee you if Paul Varlins is in that bar, he's definitely one of the toughest guys there, if not the toughest guy. That's who he really was, He's a gentleman of a man. Really super, super, super nice.
He is still eternally grateful to you even 20 plus years later. And that was really nice to find out, to hear the secondhand. Like, I know you as I know you, but he's like, oh my gosh, Javier helped me. I had nowhere to go. I was at a school. They just wanted me to fight, but they're showing me techniques that didn't work. And I go to Javier and, Pops was there apparently. And he was learning to throw punches. And he's like, I didn't know how to roll over a punch. He's like, I didn't know how to punch. Like you go to some of these schools and they have gimmicks,
Just a super, super tough guy with that wasn't really taught. Had he been taught, because he was very athletic, he could have done it a lot better. He did pretty good in my book, for a guy that went out there and, man, he had no fear. He had no fear. Fear. Whatever. I'm going to fight so whatever. Well, no big deal. I mean, he had no fear, man. He gave Chemo one hell of a fight too. It's like he gave a lot of guys tough time.
It was a pretty entertaining guy. I mean, it's just nice to look back. It's just to see the evolution and what you learned as a coach. If you had him today, what would you have changed? What would you have done if you said, okay, fine, I'm going to try to work with this? It's kind of hard to throw him up and like, well, all I got is 170 pounders today. I don't think there's much we can do in the sparring. I need to get some big bodies in here for you. I'm sure that's part of the equation when you have someone that size, but
when you have some that size, you have to get bodies, but there's other things you can do to, back then you got to remember there was only one UFC fighter, one MMA fighter in my gym at that time. It was Paul. So Brian Johnson would help him out, and box with him or kickbox with him or wrestle with him because Brian was a wrestler, Brian had some judo background, and Brian was a, Golden Glove champion in boxing, and he knew how to kick. Brian was an extremely good athlete, more skilled than Paul, but that was it. Those are the only two. And then after Paul got in, was doing the UFC, Brian got in shortly after in 1996.
He mentioned a time like you were like, hey, take it easy with that big guy over there because I guess he hurt his shoulder trying to muscle the 370-pound wildebeest, Paul Harless. And I mean, even myself, I can imagine trying to grab something that big and try to muscle it. It's like trying to push around a Chevrolet, man. I mean, that's just sheer mass. And the crazy part in conclusion, I'm just bringing it up because it was so interesting, is that I go, well, why did you leave? He's like, it's not because I couldn't fight, and it's not because I was getting beaten so badly, and because he won his last fight. He says they got rid of my weight class, and that was it. He's like, I couldn't get lower than 290 pounds, and as you know, the weight class is 265. So,
there was no job for him.
Maybe Japan, they would have liked that, but they're like, nah, he might throw somebody out there. But now you've got DC's fight coming up for the trilogy. And I guess he's done everything he can to stay in top shape. He's got his own home gym going on. And, that fight's not too far out. How do you feel about that fight coming on? You feel like he's going to close the book the way he wants to close the book and, finish his story the way he's put all his time into it?
Well, we're looking for that. I mean, that's the whole idea, and we're ahead of last camp schedule. He's got 0 injuries, no back to worry about. So he's, hey, we're on schedule. We're working. He's working on his garage, and then he'll come in here on some days that for sparring, because we have closed sessions. Mm-hmm. The gym's still not open, as we don't know when we'll open. So there's like 7-8 guys in here, and specifically just for him. And, but most of the training he does in his garage. Like I'll be going to his garage to train him. But yeah, no, he's on schedule. He's on schedule. We'll see what happens. Stipe is a great fighter, and obviously they're 1-1, and we're looking to, change the odds in our favor, and I feel good about it.
Now, here's a couple of things. Like the past couple of weeks, we're not like, don't jump on it immediately as the headline rips out. We're like, look what Connor said. Look what, Jorge Masvidal said. Look what John Jones is doing. Like a lot of the top stars lately have been like, fighting for higher pay, and they've signed contracts. And, to some point, hey, people should get more money. The other side is how much money is there to give when you're fighting with COVID and you give up the gate? It's kind of hard. I don't know. I mean, it does kind of stifle things a little bit. Did you think Connor was really retiring, or he was just trying to get the fight that he wanted?
Well, you got to understand, Connor's situation isn't money. He's getting what he wants. Jones's money. Okay, Masvidal's money. Connor had nothing to do about the money. Is give me a fight. I want to fight this day. I want to fight that day. Well, it just didn't fit in the UFC schedule, and John Jones wants more money if he was to fight Ngannou, and you can't blame him. He's wanting to jump up in weight, but then the UFC they have their tracking system, and they're going to pay you based on what they feel they'll get back. And if you pass that, what they don't want to pay, they're not going to pay you. And not that Jones isn't worth it. He damn hell is sure as hell is worth it. But it's what the UFC is willing to pay, and they have the ultimate say in the contract. because without them you can't fight. So same with Masvidal. Masvidal has a right to want more money, but the UFC has a right to protect their interests too and give you what they feel is good. And the whole idea is they're in negotiations, and I believe that they'll come to an understanding with Jones and Masvidal, and I believe those two guys will be fighting, and they'll be happy with their new contract. And who are we to say? We're not the fighters.
It's not up to me.
So to me, it's like, if that's what Jones wants, hey,
Right.
I know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. If I'm gonna watch the pay-per-view, I'm either gonna watch it or I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So bottom line is the UFC bases their stuff on pay-per-view. So if you blow the doors off of it, they're going to give you a bigger piece. And then the thing is, everybody talks about the UFC doesn't pay, but they do pay. They just don't pay the top level like top guys. They don't pay like top guys. Like, for instance, you got Mayweather. He's going to get, fight Pacquiao. They're going to get the cream of the crop when it comes to the money being distributed. But if you look at the lower level guys, some of these lower level boxers that are really, really top notch, they're getting 250 to main event a card, where a lot of these MMA champions that are not as big a name as some of these boxers don't make more. As a whole, MMA in general, if you look at the pay scale,
Average,
not
yeah.
top guys, the pay scale for the UFC fighters is much higher. On top of that, they get sponsorship. In-house sponsorship. Boxing, they have to search for their sponsors, and I'm not so sure the majority of the boxers have sponsors. Some do. No. So overall, the deal with the UFC and the fighters wanting more money, hey, you can't blame either side. The UFC is trying to keep it all to themselves and give what they feel is right, and the fighters feel that they want more money. So, who am I to say, hey, you stay in line? You're the fighter. You decide what you want to fight for, and the UFC decides that they want to give you what you want. But do I think John Jones deserves more? Absolutely, he does, because that's what he wants to do to fight. So if you give him what he wants, he'll fight. If you don't, he can probably walk away, and I'm sure he would.
It's interesting that now, never before in the sport, like back in your days or back in the mid-level, early UFCs, before social media, pretty much, they didn't really have a way of quantifying what something's going to sell for, right? And a lot of things were great ideas, like this might sell. Let's this is probably, so they look at social media statistics, analytics, and they come up with a figure based on what they'll make. What's interesting is that Cynthia's fight I read the other day was like in the high 900s or mid 900,000s of viewers, which is quite a bit for that card, because it wasn't so stacked, and so she got respectable numbers. I remember
but now take all sports are back on.
Right.
All sports are back on. You got basketball, you got whatever sporting event now on TV. Now tell me what our numbers are going to be.
Yeah,
then you can talk realistic, okay? Because right now you're talking numbers that, they're high numbers, but okay, but let's take that away. And what do we got? So there's a lot of variables involved there. And Cynthia, I think it worked out in her favor, because had regular sportsmen back on TV, she wouldn't have got those kind of numbers. It would have been 300. Who knows? Who knows what the numbers would have been? But it definitely would have been different.
Well, I wonder going forward, since people have more time to acclimate and become UFC fans because they've got nothing else to watch, it will become a regular habit for a percentage of those people. So I think it only stands to benefit fighters and the UFC moving forward, as long as this is going on. Of course, we got one concert, we get one band. Now there's 50 bands and 50 venues and different prices and different times of the day. It's so, people will go back to their other sports probably, but I think they will get some new people.
Probably, yeah. I mean, in all likelihood, that's what it probably will happen. But you don't really know what this COVID has done to us as a nation, and as a world, and you really don't know, man. You don't know. So many millions of businesses have gone under, and many people have lost everything, So, man, we're not going to really know the full impact of this till, I'll be honest with you, next year. But yet we're feeling it now, big time.
So true.
What happen next year? It's going to be even worse, So I don't know, man.
Most people are month to month to two, a lot of businesses are 1 week, 3 months, 5 months away from total destruction. They're floating on a wave. They're riding the wave moving forward. They're not, there's an old saying that 1 out of 5 business fails. Now, I mean, and how did you, this is a book I read on business years ago. What do? You need at least 3 years of reserves just in case you have a bad year. I'm like, well, great, but that's not profitable, but it's rough. So I guess when some of these businesses do get profitable, they're floating on this short wave. We've seen 24-hour fitness file for bankruptcy. We've seen
And
other
a
big
lot, some
gyms.
of them are closing down too, and then chains of 500 to 400 restaurants going under, and things that have been around a long time. I mean, hey man, it's this pandemic it really didn't do the world any favors, and it's destroyed a lot of lives, and it's going to destroy more. It's not done until there's a cure, until there's a solution. That we're done, dude. We're done. We're life as it used to be is not going to be the same. I don't know what kind of changes is going to happen. I don't know what people are doing. Are they going to stay indoor more? Or I don't know. I mean, I do know that, but regarding staying indoor, I see more people out there on their bicycles now. Like the bike business, I would imagine has taken a huge jump,
Right.
because a lot of people are out there in bikes and exercise and whatnot. And so there's a lot of going under, and then there's a few that have skyrocketed up.
Stop and smell the roses. I mean, yeah, things have changed. I mean, I don't know what it was like probably for some people the other day. I know it's kind of semi off subject, but my phone service and a lot of people's phone services and internets went out across America. And I go, well, that's the 1970s for you. Like people get a day and boop, like, the test screen was up and all you got is your bicycles in your life and you get to reflect on different things because we do get caught up in this media and stuff. It is absolutely bizarre times. I'm about to bounce off here to fan questions for you, Hav. Okay. Peaceful decadence.
What happened to Cynthia's fight? They didn't even talk about her fight.
Oh, we can talk more about her.
We didn't talk about the fight. What about Aljamain Sterling? How great he looked, and what about Sean O'Malley's walk-off fight?
Yeah, it was funny because the first question I had was Sean O'Malley. He's getting very, very popular, Sean O'Malley.
Nah, he's great. He delivers. The guy delivers. He's out there to entertain, and he entertains. And man, when he hit that, I think his walk off, in my opinion, was slightly better than Mark Hunt's walk off.
Yeah,
fantastic. It was like boom, there you go, walk off. I mean that guy. He's got style, dude. He's a fan favorite. I would think probably 2 or 3 more fights. If he continues to win, he'll have a title fight, and I expect to see that. And Cody Garbrandt, reinvented himself after being KO'd 3 times in the last 3 fights, if I'm not correct.
Yeah.
And then he comes out, and the common knowledge is always when you have something that's better than anybody else, you use it. And what he has is speed. But when you don't use speed to the speed's advantage, then you're not really doing yourself a favor. It's like being an Olympic level wrestler, and you don't never really wrestle.
Right.
Like what the hell are you doing? So when you have the kind of speed he has, then guess what you do? Use it.
Yeah.
Because that's a big advantage over a lot of fighters, and he does have some pretty good speed, and he was able to utilize that in this fight, footwork and speed, and you could see when he went back to the right, hunched down, you could see he was watching everything that was going, and he purposely, he saw the whole thing unfold right as he took out that right overhand. What kind of, the way he threw the right hand was kind of overhand a little bit, hookish type. But anyways, regardless, it was a beautiful shot. But
it was 2 good walk-offs. 2 good walk-offs that fight. O'Malley and him. Right?
I wouldn't say that was a great walk-off. It's like O'Malley's. I would just say it was a great KO.
Yeah.
It was a great KO. I mean, it was. Yeah. O'Malley was a great walk-off. I mean, that was a walk-off too, but O'Malley's that was more like the stars here. And basically, the other one was like, hey, I never went nowhere. Here I am.
It's like the artistic, exclamation point at the end of it. And you're right. Aljamain did look amazing in his fight. He took that real quick. and he's going for that belt fast, man. I mean, these guys are left with a vacancy, and they're going for it, you know.
Well, when the who's fighting for the belt? It's Marias and who? Who's
You know
fighting
what?
for
I'd have to double check, and that's why I'm the worst at this thing on this podcast.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so we'll see what happens. Whoever wins that fight, and I think it's Aldo. No,
Might be. If we're wrong, double check us. Comment on that.
Aldo Volkanovski or
No, Volkanovski is about to fight Hawaii. He's about to
oh,
fight,
Max,
yeah,
Max.
Max Holloway. Max
So then
Holloway.
Aldo. I think Aldo's fighting for that lightweight against Marias. I think.
Yeah,
I could be wrong on that one.
that's a good fight coming up too. Max Holloway versus Volkanovski. You know,
Yeah, well, the first one was great, and it was close, and Volkanovski took it at the end. Max fizzled out a little bit, but I think Max felt he won. So let's see what he does. Let's see if he doesn't fizzle out. I mean, it'll be a great fight.
for sure. Let me see what we got here. Well, also we got Poirier and Dan Hooker coming up. How do you see that going?
Dan Hooker's on a roll. If Dan Hooker can
Won his last three. Yeah.
I mean, didn't Dan Hooker and I didn't see his fight with the striker. What's his name?
He fought Felder, Iaquinta, and Vic in his last three fights.
He fought Felder. But didn't Felder felt he won?
It was a split decision.
So it was close.
Yeah.
And you thought, I didn't see the fight. Did you think Felder won? Or
I didn't see it, and then I just saw the after. I'm like, darn, I missed it. And everybody was just talking about it all over the internet. It was really popular, and it
a lot of
they went to
people
war.
a lot of people thought Felder won, and a lot of people thought, the other guy won. I don't know. I didn't see it. So I'm just saying it's gonna be another one of those.
Should be pretty exciting. So I'm going to refresh this and go into fan questions. And what do we have here for Coach today? How does Coach Javier see Umar versus O'Malley going? Ooh, good question.
Umar versus O'Malley is a great fight, but we'll have to wait to see what happens in the future. But I see that happening. 100% see that happening. Umar's that's his thing. He's a striker, great striker at that, a world champion striker at that. So no, it's a great fight. Amateur world champion. Umar.
He's got the speed and the power and the precision. He's game, that's for sure. Oh, and from Defear Fire, who are the dark horses of AKA?
There's Romero Cotton. They're only dark horses because you haven't heard very much of them. Kyle Crutchmer,
Yeah.
People like that.
It varies, right?
Yeah, okay. Very. So many different fighters. I don't know if I call them dark horses or not. They're just good fighters.
Of course, you've had a similar question to this before. Your top favorite fighters to watch outside of AKA. That changes.
Israel Adesanya. I like watching him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say he's my favorite to watch.
Okay. So predictions for Dustin versus Dan Hooker and Blaydes versus Volkov.
I will take Blaydes and I will take Hooker.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Hooker might just get him. Yeah.
He's got something to prove there.
I don't know. I'm just thinking he might get him, maybe.
Okay, Muhammad Metri. Hi, Coach. Give us your pre-fight analysis of upcoming UFC Fight Island event. Well, we don't know what the event is yet, do we?
The 3 championship fights. First one, I think it's 3 championship fights. I think it's Volkanovski versus Matt. Is Holloway, right?
Holloway, Max Holloway, yeah.
And then the main event is Ushman, right? Ushman versus
Burns.
And then
Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo.
Yeah, that's that's not for the featherweight. I mean, for the bantamweight, is it?
It's a fight. I don't know that it's for a certain ranking
There's
yet.
3 title fights on that one. There's 3 title fights.
Yeah, that's like what I see third in the lineup when I'm looking at it. Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas, and Volkan Ozdemir versus Yuri Prochaska. He was fighting over in Japan. So it's a stacked card. It's a stacked card. But you got the main part of the card is Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, and then you've got Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Holloway, and then just before that, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo, which should be pretty amazing fight right there.
That might be the title fight if it's at 135.
It will be definitely one of the most exciting fights for
No, because
sure.
there's 3 title fights. There's 2 title fights on that. If that's the third fight on. That's the third title fight.
Okay.
Because remember, Henry Cejudo relinquished his title.
Oh yeah. So they're all going to fill that up.
Yeah.
Let's see. Have Hafsar Razman have any possibility to see DC and Habib training together in 2020? We're missing their brotherhood and fun to see the two legends together.
At this particular juncture, because of COVID, I seriously doubt you will see them together.
Mm-hmm.
2020 you may never see those 2 guys together again. As far as training partners, because this is hopefully DC's last fight.
Yeah.
And I mean, they will be reunited, but probably next year. But as far as training partners, this might be it.
I'm sure even if he retired,
they may never be training partners.
I'm sure even if he'd retired, he'd show up for Habib's camp. They have that brotherhood there. You know?
Well, the thing is with Daniel, if anybody that is in town, they show up. I mean, you know, him and Habib have something outside of the training camp. They talk to each other. I don't know how or when they talk, but obviously they communicate, and they're in touch with each other all the time for life. So them getting together is fun as hell for me. I always like videotaping those guys. I guess
videos. All the funniest videos on the channel are pretty much from those two right there together.
Pretty much.
Let's see. Mel Fatami, will coach go to Dagestan or Abu Dhabi for training, Habib camp training, if AKA does not open until July or August?
Abu Dhabi, if anything, if I'm in Habib's next camp. But we don't know what's going to happen because of COVID. I don't know if I'm allowed to go. I don't know. We just don't know. I don't know. I don't think Habib's coming here. I seriously doubt that, you know, because then he comes here, then he's quarantined here, then he goes over there and he's quarantined over there. Man, I don't know. These are all questions that right now I have no answer to. So I would just go in all likelihood. What'll end up potentially happen is after DC's fight, if Habib is fighting after that, then I will be going to wherever he needs me to go, if I can go. If he fights like July 25th or anytime between that, you know, then expect me not to be there because I'm here for Daniel and I can't cut camp on Daniel. So I will not be in Habib's next fight if that happens. So right now, as it stands, I don't think Habib is going to fight till after Daniel's fight. So that's the case. If it works out like that, I will be leaving from wherever I'm at to go to wherever Habib's training camp is, whether it's in Abu Dhabi or Dagestan, I will be going there.
That's a perfect answer. Who could answer it any better? What is from Deepak GM, what is one major thing you have seen in Champ Habib that most other fighters do not possess?
What is what?
One thing that Habib has that other fighters don't possess, basically. Like personality, fighting traits, something special about him that makes him so unique.
Mental. But everybody has mental, so I don't think every fighter has what he has. He just has more of it.
Good way of putting that. Mohammed Syed, coach, will you be in Abu Dhabi for Tiger or Umar's fights?
Probably not.
Because you'll probably be with Daniel, right?
Well, I'll be stuck with COVID. If I go over there, you get stuck for 14 days without going anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then that takes all the time away. And then when can I say Umar into here? I can't. There's no way. No way possible. No way. And then this pandemic has really made it very difficult to do anything.
It's a pretty interesting question. Mel Fritas, Salam, Coach Javier. I hope you're well. Question is, were you born in and are you close to your birthplace spiritually as Habib is?
No, zero. I don't even care where I was born. I don't care to go back. I have no interest. Why, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Don't you want to go back where you were born? No. I was born in Mexico. I don't want to go back to where I was born. I don't. Part of me is afraid to go back to a place where you hear so many bad things happen. You go, man, last thing I need to do is go back and get robbed. Because hey, when you go to poverty-stricken areas, guess what happens?
Yep.
Shit like that.
So true. Mohammed Syed, hi coach. Can you please ask Scott Coker to make the fight between Kyle Crutchmer and Dylan Dennis?
That'd be great if they wanted that fight, but I think that Dylan Dennis has a lot to say about who he fights too.
Right.
And sometimes you can say Coker this, or Kyle this. Dylan Dennis's group has something to say about that, and everybody has something to say about that. So I'm sure, due to the fact that I guess Dylan made some remarks about Kyle, so it started flaring up. So hey, keep giving that fire, let him fight.
That's true. Does Habib have any improvement in Abu Dhabi, Habib's father's health?
I was told that there's slight improvements, which to me is a fantastic sign. So hopefully God will grant us our prayers, and we keep him around. So that's what we all want. That's what I want. That's what we're all praying for. And so far he's still in the game.
I like this one. How did you get into fighting from Crestfire?
I got into fighting because I used to be what a coulda shoulda guy. I used to talk a bunch of, I could be this or I could beat that person, and I never actually done any of that. So a good friend of mine named Juan Alexander, who was my roommate, was running, and I was talking about what I could have, should have, and he made me stop running. And he goes, "What have you ever done in your life? You've done nothing. So you need to shut the F up. Until you've proven yourself, you need to shut up. I don't want to hear you talk." So that's what actually got me into fighting. Not that I wanted to be a fighter. It's that I wanted to prove to him and my father, who told me I wouldn't amount to anything, that I was somebody and I could be somebody. It's funny, your dad saying words and know he was joking had a lasting impact on your life. You'll never amount to nothing. But, the funny thing is, I was already a real estate agent when I transferred over to the fight game, so I was already a somebody. But
right.
In the fight game, it was like, I had no idea I would have been a world champion. I had zero idea. And why I did it, shit, I don't even know why I did it other than those guys, my dad and Juan Alexander, telling me that, shut up, don't talk, do it.
You get egged on.
Coach. It wasn't egged on. It wasn't an egg on. It was just shut up and do it. And he didn't say fight.
Right.
Do something. So it wasn't like I got to do fighting. No, it would anything. Could have been fly fishing. It didn't matter. Juan's words were, shut the F up until you've done something that you can brag about, then go ahead. Not per se brag, but, you haven't done nothing. So I don't want to hear you talk to me about like you're somebody you're not.
Here's an interesting one. We just kind of talked about this. Coach, what's your opinion of fighter pay in UFC? Do you think Cejudo, Masvidal, Jones are right to want more money from Dana than they're currently making? Do you think there should be a fighter union?
Fighter union, I definitely, because the way the UFC is structured, it looks like you're an employee, so fighter union would protect them. But what fighters are supposed to be represented, then no, there shouldn't be a union for what fighters are supposed to be. They're not supposed to be taken by one company. They should have options of going with different promoters to fight for the highest bidder. But the UFC has a different type of contract that they've been able to do. And as long as they're able to implement their contract, they're going to continue to implement their pay structure. And whether you like it or not, you either fight for them or you don't fight for them. But if you sign with them, you ain't fight for nobody else unless they give you permission. So
Yeah.
Either, so what John Jones and Masvidal and all those guys are doing, and Henry Cejudo, they all want more money, otherwise they're not fighting. And yeah, I can't blame them. Absolutely. But at the same time too, if you're a company and you're used to making X amount of money, and all of a sudden COVID comes in and just cripples your financial end,
Right.
and now you're having to pay the fighters the same as you were before, but now the fighters come in and they want more money, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Okay, before you were wanting more money, we were making more money too, but now we're making less and you still want more. So they're like, no, 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 no. We're gonna do this, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's just the way it works. Do they deserve more? Probably. Will they get more? I think some will. I think John Jones will. I think John Jones will make more money. I think Henry, hard to say. I don't know the numbers on him. I don't know what the interest on him. Does Henry deserve more money? Absolutely. Absolutely. Will he get it? I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, this isn't exactly the same thing, but I told you some of my friends in sports radio, a lot of them were given either the offer of furlough or 20% of their pay discounted. So that's a reflection of what's happening in sports media, sports pay, sports entertainment. It's not the athletes per se, but then the Major League Baseball, they were laying off all their farm teams because they pay them a wage, you know what I mean? To be ready, to be in the stable. So when you see this kind of impact and you want more, you have to look around and say, well, yeah, you were right before COVID. You totally were right. They were taking all the lion's share, but now, they had 20 cakes and they were giving you a piece. Now there's a half a cake. You know what I mean? That's the one thing that's tough. I mean, just
But
economic reasoning.
you understand, fighters are selfish. They don't think about anything themselves. That's the way it's always been. It's the way it will always be. So, I mean, they're selfish, and they have to be. In order to be successful, I feel they need to be selfish, and they are.
Hmm.
So doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah,
I mean, they want more money. Well, they have a right to want more money. Well,
it's
the
true.
UFC has the right to not give it to you. If you have a solid contract, you have a contract. So bottom line is, you either fight or you don't.
Yeah.
You have an option. The problem is, if you're signed with the UFC and you don't fight, you're not fighting anywhere else. So they didn't want to pay you your money. Well, guess what? You can't solicit money from elsewhere because you can't go box. You can't do any kind of other sport, fighting sport, without the UFC's permission, because they got to protect their assets. If they built you into a brand with their help, you became this big, household name. Obviously, they're not going to let you out of your contract to go fight for somebody else on a name that they put a lot of time into.
Yeah, they want to
So
keep
many different ways to look
their
at it. It's not like evil UFC, evil fighters.
no.
There's a lot of give and take on both sides, and if you understand both sides, you'll be fine, and you can try to work it out. If you don't, then you're all thinking that the UFC is this, but then the UFC does so many damn good things that other people don't do. But
Yeah.
nobody seems to talk about how great they do take care of their fighters in a lot of ways that other people don't do. No one seems to talk about the bonuses Dana gives behind closed doors that nobody talks about, and how they bail. They bail a lot of people out too, man. So
Yeah.
for all the good and all the this and that, people talk about bad this, but they do so many good too.
What's that old saying? 100 attaboys and one oh crap, you're back to oh crap again. It's kind of how it works. Oh, we didn't remember all the good stuff you did. The 99 times you were great, but that's no, that's true. They're keeping people fighting and keeping them employed. Talking with the Italians, are like, we just need to keep them fighting. We need, these guys need to move in their career, because imagine your career is just put on hold. Whether you're a realtor or a milkman or whatever you do, hey, you're out of business. Turn you off. Sit on the sidelines. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't do what you're doing. So yeah, man. I mean, I think we get a few more questions. I know we have so many, but we're going to get through these. Um, Muhammad Sayed. Oh, okay. Houston Gordon. How strong is Habib weightlifting wise? As in, what are the numbers? How much can he squat, deadlift, bench? Thanks.
I have zero idea. I
One
could
bear.
say this:
A
I'm strong.
bear.
I'm stronger than him. So, but I also weigh him by about 100 pounds. So,
Yep. Yep. You've been hitting the gym pretty hard, Hav.
no, I outweighed him before the gym. So,
Last question. Let's see. Muhammad Sayed. For us, Sahabi said that GSP and Islam would be Habib's toughest fights. Thoughts on that? funny he threw in Islam.
Who would be? GSP would be Islam and Habib.
No, GSP and Islam would be Habib's toughest fight.
Faraz Sahabi said that?
Yeah, that's what somebody's saying he said.
I agree.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. One more thing. Let's see. Let me find the best question to close this out. Okay. Well, I think, okay, Red Pigeon. Does Habib stay standing between rounds in all fights? If yes, why does he do that? Thanks.
Habib, most of the time stands, and I don't know what it is about him, but I think he uses that 1 minute to start talking smack to Dana or somebody, or just somebody say, I don't need to sit down, I got your ass beat. I don't know what the hell it is, but yeah, I wish he would sit down, and I wish he would pay attention more, but nope. It's kind of like his 1 minute of timeout is kind of like, how am I doing? You like it? Oh, watch this. You know, or Dana, no more bullshit contracts and blah, 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 you know. I don't know.
He's grappling on the cage and negotiating his next fight with Dana.
Yeah.
Where have we seen him do that?
I don't know how to get that because, you know, I tell him, turn around. No, he still looks facing the crowd.
Right.
You know, but I don't, you know, get mad at him for that. You got, as a corner and a coach, you can't get pissed at your fighter during that time that happens. You have to adjust and go along because you got to get to him. So he does shit like that. I have to just adjust. So I just adjust. Do I want him to do it? Hell no, I don't want him to do it. I want him to sit down. I want to control what he's doing because that's what a coach is supposed to do. But guess what? I don't control what he's doing. So I have to adjust to just be able to give him my 2 cents, you know, and that's what happens.
Do you have any feedback on what's going on with him training up in northern Russia? Is he getting some good rounds in? Are you getting any feedback on what he's doing up there?
I don't talk about his training. All I've ever talked about since his father got sick is how's your father doing? I don't ever discuss training. I don't even talk to anybody about his training. I do know this. He trains year round, so he's training. But how hard he's training, I have no idea because I've never asked him how's the training going. All we've ever talked about is how's your father doing, how's your family doing, I love you, this and that. But that's pretty much it. We don't and I'm still on the how's your father doing. Not
It's always number one.
Number one is how's your father doing and your family. And for right now, that's what we're talking about. He did send me some video the other day of him punching, which was pretty good punching. He sends me video every so often of him doing different techniques. He asked my opinion, what I think, and he sent me a video. It was actually pretty good.
You know, I wanted to bring something up. When I did that, I had to explain something, and I wanted to see what their thoughts were on it. The European fighters, there's people all over the world. There's great fighters that haven't, like you said about our friend Enrico, that he has not fought a name yet. He needs a name to make himself into any league. I was talking with his managers, and I was talking with the people. And he's got an old school coach, which I talked to some other people like, that guy's the man. Like, he's really tough, badass guy in Italy. And I talked with him. And he's like, listen, I just want to leave it on the ring to show what I got. The tough part of that, and it's something that you brought up, was that it is an entertainment sport where Conor could jump over 3 guys because that fight's going to sell. And that's what I was kind of explaining to them, like what you brought up, like, hey, man, this is the fight people want to see. You know, the guy might be 5th and the other guy's 1st, and the other 4 guys in the middle might get hopped because that's what's trending.
Or that's who they got cheaper, or that's who was a friend of a friend. You know, it's the fight sport is not a legit sport where you earn your shot, you get your shot. No. Somebody can
linear.
There's so many different ways someone can leapfrog you. It just, you better understand that, because if you don't, you're in for a lot of heartache.
My question on that, how many real super badasses do you think are undiscovered floating around in the mid-level, lower pro leagues that are just waiting around? I mean, how much do you think a guy spends in that pool?
Not that much.
No?
No, hell no.
Right?
No way. Hey, you know who the badasses are. You know who they're going to be. You know, people talk. You know, it's just like, you know, a lot of people knew about Cain Velasquez before Cain even really had very many fights.
I
you know.
remember we went to
So
your gym. He had 0 fights. You guys were like, "This is the guy," and you guys already knew.
a lot of people do, and then and the guys when they fight in the lower circuit, people talk about them, and they know, people know. So there's no gems out there. There's just fighters that haven't made it, to the stage because they don't have enough fights, But everybody talks about him. That other guy that from France that made it into the UFC from the same coaches in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his name, but anyways, long story short, I heard about him before he was even in the UFC. Then I see him in the UFC. He's pretty impressive. He's like in Ghana in a lot of ways. He's a better kickboxer and stuff. But anyways, that's everybody heard about it. If you're in the sport, and you do look at social media, there's not that many hidden gems out there. I'm sure there is, but not that many, hardly at all.
It kind of sorts itself out. If you're going to get discovered, you're going to get discovered, and that's it. If you do that highlight reel knockout or choke or whatever
Or
you do,
you happen to be fortunate and get Dana White looking for a fight,
right?
If you get on that, then you get discovered. But these guys, they got into Dana White's looking for a fight for a reason because they were top guys, anyways.
Yeah. It'd be cool if he did one overseas on the Fight Island, a contender series out of there, contender fighter, Europe contender fighter. That would be interesting.
I don't know. They have so many things they could do, right? I mean, Dana. They're the big movers and shakers, so they can create a lot of content and a lot of they're number one.
Yeah, they're rocking. Well, it's been a great podcast, Hav. It was good talking about these subjects today. I mean, we will be back soon, so make sure you subscribe. Javier wants 100,000 subscribers, and thank you for more tomorrow. We've had over 1,000 since the last podcast, so that's good. I'm happy with that.
You need 89,000.
Well, if you're friends with the coach, support the coach. Let your friends know. We need more people here, and then we'll also get more interesting fan questions, especially with that many people. I don't think we could ever go through it where we're at right now. I could even get to the bottom of these. How there's another 40 questions, and your time is valuable. So I'll leave it at that. Subscribe.